Tell someone what to do, and their ego immediately resists. Force them, and they rebel. But give them a choice where every single option leads directly to the result you designed, and they will execute your plan with passion, completely convinced it was their idea. This is the illusion of choice, the ultimate weapon of stealth influence. In this masterclass, you will learn how to steer decisions, eliminate resistance, and command outcomes without ever giving a single order. Human beings possess an inherent psychological desire for autonomy. When you issue a direct command, you immediately trigger psychological reactance, a defensive surge of ego where the target feels their freedom threatened. The architecture of choice bypasses this natural defense by shifting the dynamic from demand to selection. Instead of telling someone what to do, you present them with a curated matrix of choices. The psychology is simple yet profound. Because they believe they are making a free choice, their ego relaxes and their resistance vanishes. They feel empowered and in control of the decision-making process, unaware that you have engineered the perimeter. By designing the architecture within which they operate, you allow them the feeling of agency while retaining absolute control over the available paths. In stealth influence, the illusion of liberty is far more effective than the exertion of force. The double bind is a classic psychological structure designed to guarantee victory regardless of the specific choice selected. In standard interactions, choices lead to opposing outcomes, one that favors you and one that favors the opponent. A strategic double bind rewrites this formula so that every available option yields a result that serves your underlying objective. For instance, rather than asking if a target wants to commit to a project, you ask whether they prefer to handle phase 1 today or tomorrow. Either answer solidifies the commitment. The target focuses entirely on choosing between option A and option B, completely overlooking the hidden third option, which was to decline altogether. By locking both choices inside your strategic parameters, you create a psychological maze with multiple entrances, but only one destination, your desired outcome. Asymmetric anchoring relies on human cognitive bias regarding comparative value. People rarely evaluate options in absolute isolation. Instead, they make decisions based on relative contrasts. To push a target toward a specific choice, you introduce a decoy option designed to be intentionally unappealing or structurally asymmetric. This decoy anchors their perception of value, making your target choice appear infinitely more reasonable, safe, or advantageous by comparison. When presented with a terrible option alongside your preferred option, the target intuitively gravitates toward your intended choice to avoid the obvious downside of the decoy. They feel clever for selecting the clearly superior path, yet they fail to realize that the decoy was never meant to be chosen in the first place. It served merely as a psychological visual aid to highlight and guarantee the execution of your primary objective. Language dictates reality, and presupposition hijacking is the subtle art of embedding your desired outcome deep within the structural framing of a question. Instead of asking an open question that invites hesitation or a direct refusal, you construct the inquiry so that answering it automatically accepts your baseline assumption as fact. For example, asking, "Do you think our strategy will succeed?" invites debate and skepticism. Asking, "Which specific phase of our strategy do you think will yield the fastest results?" forces the target's brain to accept that the strategy succeeds, shifting their focus entirely to analyzing the timeline. The human mind naturally skips over questioning the underlying premise to address the immediate question. By controlling the unconscious assumptions baked into your words, you steer their cognitive focus away from resistance and directly into your narrative. True mastery of stealth influence occurs when the target not only executes your plan, but adopts it as their personal crusade. The ownership loop is engineered by planting the seeds of an idea indirectly. allowing the target to connect the final dots themselves. Human nature dictates that people will fiercely defend, justify, and execute ideas they believe originated in their own minds, whereas they will routinely question or sabotage ideas forced upon them by an outside authority. To trigger this loop, you guide the conversation using strategic prompts, open-ended leads, and deliberate pauses, leaving just enough space for them to speak the conclusion aloud. The moment they articulate your intended outcome in their own words, the psychological shift occurs. Their internal ego attaches to the concept, instantly creating a sense of deep personal pride and intellectual ownership. They will no longer view the strategy as an external task to be completed. They will view it as their own brilliant initiative. Consequently, they will work tirelessly to overcome obstacles and defend the agenda against opposition, operating as your most devoted executor while believing they are simply fulfilling their own vision. The ultimate hallmark of high-level dark psychology is complete invisibility. If a target suspects for even a fraction of a second that they are being maneuvered, their psychological defenses instantly react, destroying the illusion of choice and breeding deep-seated resentment. Subconscious steering is the disciplined synthesis of all influence tactics, executed with absolute stoic composure, subtle nonverbal framing, and total emotional detachment. To master this level of control, you must completely suppress the childish desire for immediate credit or public recognition. Amateur manipulators driven by ego fail because they constantly need others to know how clever they are. Elite strategists operate in the shadows, deriving satisfaction purely from the flawless execution of the result. You steer the environment through micro-pacing, matching their vocal rhythm, anchoring positive emotional states to your presence, and dropping imperceptible behavioral cues that guide their decisions far below their conscious threshold of awareness. Furthermore, you must maintain absolute nonchalance when they finally land on the precise choice you designed for them. Do not celebrate excessively, show excitement, or display triumphant body language. Treat their decision as the completely natural, obvious, and self-evident progression of events. By ensuring that your hand remains entirely invisible throughout the entire interaction, you leave zero trace of manipulation. The target leaves the room feeling victorious, empowered, and entirely autonomous, completely oblivious to the fact that they spent the entire time walking along a precise corridor meticulously constructed by you.